Hi, welcome back to the Trust Your Worth podcast, the podcast that helps you tap in to the power of knowing your worth. My name is Brittany, and thank you for joining me here today. I've been a little ill, so if my voice sounds a little deep, that is why. Thanks for joining me. Hope your week's been amazing. Last week we talked about overcoming imposter syndrome. So if you struggle to believe that you belong, then maybe that episode is for you. So check out season 3, episode 5. But today we are talking about how insecure people might be killing your vibe. If you are struggling with negative people around you or maybe you might be struggling with these types of things, then hopefully this episode will help you out today. So let's get into it on today's episode. How are insecure people killing your vibe? Well, let's start with a key difference. So there is a difference between a person experiencing insecurities and a full-on insecure person. So everybody at some point or another is going to experience insecurities. I struggle with them sometimes. We all do. But when it comes to internalizing and being insecure, then those people, I'm sure you can think of somebody who is just so insecure that they are just bringing down everyone around them. How so? Well, they do things like interrupt people all the time. Why? Because they are so focused on themselves and what's important for them to say and the point they want to get across. They're not living in the moment. They are anticipating and trying to control everybody's perception of them and how they're looking. Another thing they might do is they put themselves down a lot. They'll say things like, "Oh, that sweater looks so good on you, but never on me. Man, I'm so ugly today." They also complain a lot about anything or everything. They don't like to take accountability for things. It's just things happen. I can't believe this happened to me. How awful. I had nothing to do with it. That sort of thing. They also might not celebrate your wins. So let's say like, "Oh my gosh, you're so excited to tell them, hey, I got that promotion I've been hoping for." They're just like, "Oh, that's cool, I guess. I got the latest iPhone." They're competitive. They turn wins into a competition. And they want your validation. So when they're continuously putting themselves down, like, "Oh, I'm not smart enough to get the job that I want." And you find yourself saying like, "No, of course you are." Like, yeah, this might be so frustrating. It's frustrating to me. That's why I try not to have insecure people in my life for long periods of time. As you know you're worth more, you start to recognize the huge difference of someone who knows their worth and someone who has just embodied insecurities that they aren't dealing with. And it's not your problem to solve. Like, they're going to have to figure out how to become less insecure and trust their worth a bit more. But they're killing your vibe if you have people like this in your life, because they're just bringing negativity to it. We attract what we allow into our lives. If you allow continuous negativity, of course it's going to get you down. And recovering people pleasers like myself or current people pleasers, you probably have had a friend or a person in your life who is insecure, that you've given them grace maybe a little too much times, and it stressed you the F out because you're worried for them and you're trying to tell them like, "Hey, you're a great person. Why can't you see it?" And they're constantly trying to pick them up, and they're just draining you like an energy vampire. And it turns into this vicious cycle that, no, we need to get out of. Because what you need to know about insecure people is that they're inherently selfish, self-centered. They see no one but them in their situation. If you hear an insecure person talk, like literally it's like, I did this, I did that. It's woe is me all the time. And they're so self-centered that they've started to harm others with their insecurities. Because remember, there's that key difference. You can have insecurities and not harm other people. As in, like, you might be really good at like hiding your insecurities and just like going for it anyway, or being respectful and like honing it back or keeping your thoughts to yourself, which I was that way. I was really good at hiding my insecurities until it exploded in awful ways. But here is a quote that I want you to remember that might help you to not only recognize them, but also to remember why it's important to cut these people out of your life. I don't know, maybe I'm an Aquarius too. Like I can cut people out like easily. No problem doing that. But if you struggle with that, I want you to remember this quote. So I'm posting this video. It's a TikTok that kind of inspired this whole episode, and there was a lot of information in there. I'm trying to condense it and give you like some key things that might be helpful. This woman's name is Amanda, and she just gives a fire quote. So she says, quote, "Insecure people like to stay where they are. They are content with their negativity and content with being insecure." Close quote. Oh my gosh, content with their negativity and they're content with being insecure. So imagine you're trying to get from A to dream life and you're happily going along and you're going step by step, but you have someone who doesn't want you to change. They want you to stay in the negativity. They want you to stay insecure with them because misery loves company. But no. You're changing. Someone who knows their worth knows that growth is a part of life, that change is inevitable, and in order to get to the next level, you have to change. But insecure people, they don't want to do it. They're happy where they are. They have found people who allow them to stay in that negativity, and most times you'll find a group of a lot of insecure people together. You probably recognize them. They like to go around in packs. So what are some ways we can set some boundaries? So I found this article by Rachel Miller. It's what to do when a friend's insecurity is ruining your vibe. And it has very specific circumstances, as in what are the signs you're dealing with, which I've mentioned some of those, like the interrupting or they're like comparing themselves to you. She gives very specific things. I did not talk about this one. An insecure person is going to put others down to make themselves feel better. I want to talk about this one. A way you can respond respectfully in this situation. If the person is being really cruel to someone else in that moment, then you can say things like, "Hey, that's a little much," or "I'm not comfortable with you saying that. That's a little unkind." Or "I think we're going a little too far here. She's a good person and we all have our flaws." So you can stand up for people and sort of shut down that behavior in a kind way. And then hopefully you have a conversation with that person later when things are calmer and say something like, "Hey, I feel like a lot of the times our conversations turn into like ragging on people and it doesn't feel nice to me. Like it doesn't feel right to me. I don't know where it's coming from, like, for you. Is there something that's bothering you that's causing you to say things like this?" So try to get them to confront that behavior and, like, the real reason why they're being so rude about others. What you should say to someone who's constantly putting themselves down in front of you. This can be super uncomfortable and hard to witness. You don't want to be dismissive of what they're feeling. You can say something like, "Hey, I'm so sorry you're feeling this way. Even though I don't agree with what you're saying, I think you're great, and I have felt X, Y, and Z before, and I know how tough it is to feel that way." Okay, and here's a situation when you're trying to be more supportive, but it's really draining because it seems to be about the same things. And maybe that insecure person, your friend, doesn't realize they're doing it. So this might be a great way to bring it up and to set a boundary so that you don't feel as emotionally drained. So you can say, hey, I've noticed that you often ask me if I think you look okay, blah, 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 whatever it is. And I feel like my answers don't seem to help because I'll often reassure you, but it keeps happening. So I want to support you, but I feel like maybe there's something you're looking for that I can't give, or there's something more you need from me. And what might that be? So, yeah, a really great and kind way to bring that up. And if there are a person who's just struggling with insecurities, then this will hopefully resolve that. And if they're an insecure person, then this might continue and you might need to cut them out of your life. You cannot help someone recognize their worth if they're not ready to recognize it themselves. Like, if they're not ready to go on their own worth journey, you can tell them till you're blue in the face, like, hey, you're enough, you're worthy. But until they want to change, there's nothing you can do that's gonna make them change. So do not take on the responsibility of being someone's validation. We all need validation from time to time. I'm not saying that. I mean like constant validation where they need to hear it every single day or they get mad at you. That's unfair. Like, they need to pull from their own love and they need to learn how to love themselves. And that's what you're doing here. So if you're struggling to love yourself, if you feel that you are insecure, then start with recognizing, firstly, that you're worthy of love. You're enough. You always have been. And you always will be. I say this in almost every episode. So that's a truth that you need to internalize. And if you haven't, then just repeat it to yourself every day. I am worthy of love. I am enough. I do not have to earn love. I've never had to earn it. Those are types of affirmations you can say to yourself to help you start on this worth journey. Most insecurities come from, it's either a lack of belief in yourself that you can do it, or the lack of preparation. So it creates that fear when you don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of times the answer is to just try. I truly believe everything is figure outable, that if you don't know how to do something, that's okay. You can figure out how to do something. Even relationships. You can learn how to be good in a relationship. You can learn how to be a better friend. You can learn how to be a better lover. You can learn how to communicate better. There's so many things you can do to help take insecurities away, which really are fears, just by practice, by preparation, and trusting that you can call on those skills you're learning when you need them. And also being okay with making mistakes, being okay with failure, and recognizing that failure is just a part of life. It's a stepping stone. It's just information. It's not like, oh my gosh, you suck, you failed. No, you can just know that that's one way it didn't work out, so you can try again in a different way. That will hopefully work out this time, or that you're just being redirected to something better or something new. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. If you feel like somebody is being insecure around you, then you need to decide if you want to keep them in your life. You have to be able to set a boundary. So having a conversation with them about how their actions, their self-centeredness, insecurities are being harmful to you in a kind way. So setting a boundary or just cutting the negativity out of your life. Life is hard enough. I hope that you have supportive people who are so happy for you when you have a win. People who don't compare themselves to you and try to compete with you. Like, that's frustrating. You don't need that. I hope that you don't become a validation machine for someone else, because that's draining. I hope that you are able to recognize these patterns of insecurity and either If you can't help someone change, if they're not willing to change, then have the courage to cut that person out of your life, because you don't need negativity. You're going high places. Insecure people, they're not moving. They want to stay in that negativity. They are content with being insecure. You don't need that. No, you're going where they cannot. And it's okay to let those people go. Your workbook this week. If you recognize that there's an insecure person that is causing negativity in your life, to really be honest with yourself. If you want to keep them in your life, then set a boundary with them. Or if you need them out of your life, then please, your work this week is to cut them out of your life. To kindly and respectfully say, oh, it's time for us to part ways. Have the courage to do it so that you can grow. And I know that might be a huge ask, especially it can be a scary thing. Or is it scarier if they stay in your life? I know this is heavy work. And if you feel like you aren't struggling with an insecure person in your life that you don't need to set a boundary for, then I want you to tackle one of your insecurities. So here's a common one. I feel unlikable and it's hard to make friends, so I'm not going to try to make new friends. So how do we combat that? We go out and we just try and talk to people. So my goal to combat the insecurity of people won't like me and feeling unlovable is to try and put myself out there. So I'm going to go salsa dancing finally and just trying to have like a conversation with someone new. Not necessarily just like dancing with them, but like actually getting to know some things about a new person that I meet. So that is my work this week. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, if you're having a negative thought, I want you to combat it with something positive. Change it to a positive. As always, you can find me at trustyourworth.com or on Instagram at trustyourworthpodcast, as well as TikTok. And if you want to follow my fun page, that's at Brittany L, BRTNEYELLE. And thanks for being you. If no one has told you today, you are so beautiful. You are so worthy. And don't forget to trust your worth. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Love you. Bye.